I wonder if you each could talk to us about the first rehearsal. Did Balanchine talk to you about Tchaikovsky Pas de Deux before, or did you learn about it in the rehearsal?
Well, we were excited because it was the music. They found the music, and that's what we heard. And then, of course, the thrill to be, we were invited to be, we were the understudies.
Yes, we were. It was supposed to be Diana and Jacques. And also, you know, my mother and I knew Peter Marsh. He was a friend, you know, the Tchaikovsky Foundation. And he had called us one time and said, oh, you know, they found that wonderful piece of music. And it would be so nice for a pas de deux. And I said, I hope you're going to give it to Mr. B. He said, yes, 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 that's what I'm going to do. And that's what he did. And that's just when they had found the music. And we didn't think we were going to be dancing it. But after a while, Diana's foot was not well. And she realized she couldn't do it. So Mr. B just made us continue.
But you had been in on the early rehearsals.
Yes, we had been in.
Did he talk at all about what he wanted it to be or what he thought of the pas de deux as being?
I don't think really.
No,
or did he just work?
He never explained. In my time, he never explained anything except in terms of how he would move and what he wanted. He wanted force or looseness and that kind of thing, but never like a...
It was clear to me that since it was almost like a little violin concerto, that there was that legato line, you know, and that any pirouette we did should be like a little frisson, you know, and shouldn't be just like a technique and set, but just like a reaction to the music, the retards, rubato and all this. That was clear to me. And when he choreographed for those things, you had the reality of a character practically by what he choreographed on the music.
The music was the character.
The music
in a
was
way.
the character.
Yeah,
Definitely.
And he really liked what Violette did.
Oh.
No, because he mentioned your phrasing is wonderful, the way you've handled the music. But you know, he would allow. I felt anyway when I'm not talking about just this part, but other things. He'd give you a framework of the steps to do, and then he would oftentimes he'd say, because I was sort of slow, to tell you the truth, I was slow. So
what, learning or
learning the steps, and I couldn't do what the kids at Peter, Bo and Jenny did. It's unbelievable. So he'd say, okay, and he'd know I would go. He'd say, go home and make.
Oh.
And then I'd come the next thing, and I would have something prepared. Not just the steps, but also an interpretation. Within, not changing the steps, but there's so many ways to do every little thing. And so, and I think that's why he used me. Because,
yes, of course.
and you and Melissa and all the people that he had then, because he within, and then if you interpreted it the way he didn't want, he'd tell you.
Yes.
And of course that but sometimes I would pull and do things that just a little differently, and he'd let me do it.
Yes,
So
I know.
I felt
it's the same with me anyway.
I felt I was creative. Even though, you know what I'm saying, I was making within the framework of the art of what he that.
How about how long did he work on this before he got it done?
Well, it was how many weeks? It was quite a few
Quite a
before,
few,
and
4
then
weeks.
I think at the end, I don't remember what it seemed like we had plenty of time. He was.
Yes, I had a feeling I was really well rehearsed and ready when I did it. We were very comfortable together, and we had the fish and all that stuff.
And also, I was really not a very good dancer. I was.
But you know, you had just finished his military service.
This was
also.
6 months out of the army.
Yes.
And so I was in the army 2 years, and I was in Korea.
And
so
partnering Maria Tolci first to begin with, practically, wasn't it?
Oh, 3 months.
Yes.
And I was doing Nutcracker Pas de Deux with Maria
Yes.
Tolci. So they needed partners, and I have a natural. I don't think I'm bragging. I seem to know what the girl's going to do.
It's wonderful.
I don't know what it is.
He's so famous as a partner.
So
You're
even though I
always-
couldn't dance, I have to think,
Oh.
push, pull, glissade, now, every little thing. I had to think through.
But the partnering you didn't so
And
much?
partnering, I know, because the girl would do something, and I knew what she was going to do, because I just see her
Yes.
moving, and I don't know, that was my gift. I was lucky, or whatever. That's
Do you
weird.
think that kind of instinctiveness is important in a partner?
Well, it was with me.
I would say yes, having had different partners,
yeah.
definitely. He was caring. You know, I said something, and I used your name. I said many partners were boyfriends. Conrad was a husband. Do you know what I mean? In that sense,
Yeah.
that defines. You were in an adventure that might be exciting, but a little bit precarious too.
Yeah.
With Conrad, it was a good husband who was going to take care of you and make you look good and be, give you confidence and tenderness. It was really like that.
What about Tchaikovsky?
Well, I wasn't the husband in that one. I was just, I was just the boy next door.
Were there things about the partnering in Tchaikovsky that were particularly hard or different, or?
No,
The little pirouettes going one way, going the other. Nice little resolutions already with very minimum partnering and distance. He really was trying to make the dance for two people relating only when they needed to relate, but that you couldn't see the guy waiting to help the girl, that it would happen musically and artistically, but not, in a labored way
very
or
fresh.
slaving way.
It was not a heavy pas de deux
No,
at all.
not
Just
at all.
light, light, light.
Yes.
So it was effervescent, and
Yes.
and the easier you could make it look, that's
Exactly.
So it shouldn't be laborsome looking.
And what I loved about that pas de deux also, and sometimes now people play it so fast from the beginning to the end that it becomes a big coda, the whole thing. I like when the adagio is tender, and you have time to, really tenderness between the partner, tenderness of the dancing, the music, and then the solo get perky, provoking already, and the coda is throw it all out, and go for it. And that is when it really graduates in the right way. Do you know what I mean?
It's
And the adagio was still
very
a
theatrical.
romance. Romance.
Yeah.
We're talking about romance. Romance.
I'm curious because it amuses me that you actually were the second cast for a while, because everybody, I
I've
think
heard a lot of
Martin
things.
wrote and other people thought that it was very much from your particular
Well, because I
gifts.
think that the solo, which I think he really did on me, I don't know if he had started the solo for Diana, or just very little.
It looks like you.
Yeah, it looks like me, doesn't it?
Right.
In a way. I don't remember clearly now if he had started on Diana or not. The adagio was very Diana, and it was nice for me to have to follow her in that sort of nice, long, big line, But then the solo was, I think, definitely my cup of tea, yeah. And what he gave for me. And I could jump on point easily because I had a sore bunion that became a good tool later. I suffered all my childhood with that bunion, and then later on it was a good little hammer. It's so funny. You got a reward, yes.
For suffering.
Transformed,
Yes.
But so all those things.
Yeah, I think, I'm trying to think back. I wish I had kept a journal, because I think he did a lot of the things, that solo, on me. He set something that would make me look good, and I could always turn well or beat well, that kind of stuff. So
Also
he did
because,
what I could.
it's a Christensen Balanchine pedigree. Christensen was his dancer. Christensen was her teacher. You come from the Christensens in San Francisco. It's the
yes.
family.
Yeah.
They're so close in their conception and their
Well,
ideas.
to them, Balanchine was God.
Yes,
So
yes, that's right.
When I came,
prepared.
in fact, they were angry with me when I left San Francisco to come here. But how could they? How
Yeah,
could I?
because-
Hey, I want to be with the God, not.
Yes, exactly. So they
Not
themselves
that-
would say, yes, you're right. That's the only way to go.
Now, you mentioned before and just now about the different versions and the fact that the solo was longer when you did it.
Yes.
How like when you must have noticed differences when you watch these two dancers, although I gather not a huge number. How do the versions happen? Because
Well,
because
right
different
away,
dancers?
it just seemed like, especially with men, he would do I think the language of dance at that time was better with the women, and probably even, well, today too. So it's different. So you find the women's variations, he really loved to choreograph. The men's, he didn't find that the finesse was quite there to do what he wanted. So he would say, oh, well, just, you know, what can you do? And so if someone could turn well, like I turn, he just gave me turns, and I could do, and he, or someone high jumps, that's what he wanted to do, and or the speed. So Eddie he was the first to do that, develop this one with the saison like this, that's very fast, and he was like lightning, he could get to a position so fast and very exciting. So he set something that Eddie looked good, and so so there were so many versions, and one time, as an example, I was teaching Helge,
Yes.
not Tchaikovsky, but Stars and Stripes, and I said, okay, now Jacques does this, and right here, and I give him 3 steps for the first phrase, and then I say, and I did this, and so forth, and Tchaikovsky did that, etc., and so forth, and go, and then this one, then I realized at the end, I'm just, and since since he said, teach Helge the variation, there was no variation, there was a million. So I thought, well, he'd like to have the choices. Then I've realized now, I should have just said, I use my own artistic sense. I would have said, Helge, do this, and then you do this. And I should have made a nice little thing for Helge. And then not have to, because choices are hard to make for dancers, I think. And I probably could have made some nice choices for him. And if I did it again,
that's what you'll do.
I would have done that for him. Because he was so confused at the end after I gave him 8 different variations and so forth.
Which one to do?
Which wasn't. I don't think he might have thought I was trying to undo him or something, you know, make him look bad.
No, you're overdoing it. A very large banquet.
Yeah, so that's how it was.
Talk about some of the different versions of the women's
You know,
role.
funnily enough, the girls' version has survived almost untouched. Here and there, a little Susu is getting lost or something, and the little counts for the turns might have lost. The version for the girl is really more or less consistent, much more so than the men's solo moments, which are really, you know, a la soup du jour, you know, spécialité du chef. I mean, what can you do? And then, you know, he always said, you know, yes.
In fact, it was so free with the boys that, and since boys would do their menages or tricks or whatever you want, oftentimes during an evening, I'd say, Jacques, what are you, and we'd be in different ballets. Are you going to do the menage, the jeté coupé? Okay, well then I'm going to do the soda bun, you know, because we didn't want the audience to have to see the same thing, you know, so.
Funny.
Isn't that wonderful? No, so that's true, because when you go to a gala and you see 6 pas de deux, people will end up doing diagonals or more or less the same steps in different ballets. It's true.
So they'd switch. So we'd always try to make it something interesting for the audience so they'd see something different, which we all had different things like that. So that was the way.
And Balanchine never said anything.
You know, it's funny because we should have asked him, but we never even, he was so willing, and, you know, for us to do it. He probably, I think, thought it was good, because I'm sure, well, not to bother him with that piddle stuff. And so I'm sure he didn't mind. I mean, absolutely.
Do you think he would have minded if the women did that, or did they do it?
I think with the women it was more set in a choreographic sense. Yeah. With the men, there were some very plain technical achievements, you know, steps that they were going to show off. And that's almost like passe-partout, you know, it's like everybody's thing, you know. So the only thing you would say, are you lefty, or are you, and if you want to turn on left, no problem, fine, you know. He would be so accommodating this way, you know. No, with the girls, since he had already, you know, cut us into choreography, we stayed in that choreography, really. It was more purely choreographic. With the boys in this kind of a pas de deux, not to say the steps are not choreographic, they are. They managed to be that and also be recognizable classical technical prowess for, you know, usual. But the girls, it was more built in.
Yeah.
Well,
Now-
like this, that first step, where it's a complicated step, that should, I think, when it's not run-of-the-mill as choreography, that should be preserved. Things like that, I think, are important. But where it's just brise, volées, diagonal,
Yeah,
or
that's it.
cabriole, something, you know, it's just ham and eggs kind of thing.
Yes, that's it.
Everything.
You see,
So
that's it.
That correction or suggestion you gave Peter, I think it was jumping forward instead of doing a rond de jambe and then jumping.
Oh, that was
well,
marvelous
That's
with that
a
forward
was
leap.
that your
Fantastic.
done for you? Because that's
yeah, well,
exciting.
he coached me. That's what he wanted, and that's what Jock did too. I mean, but that yes, definitely, that was choreographed, and that should stay. See, things like that. Now that's not, you don't see that in other variations. That's totally original.
And you know, also what it
and the
brought us-
expression and the way it's done. So that has to be. Those are the things that you
But
want
it
to
sounds
keep.
like it's gotten lost.
Yeah, they just do around, and they do this run in a little coupe, and hey, what's that? You know, it looks like a little preparation. It's the big step, and the air tour is nothing.
Yeah.
Also,
That's-
he made
wonderful.
steps to educate dancers also. Very often the purpose was a form of education. And if you look at it, you realize that this is about a step being very well done in class also. That if you do the rond de jambe, in order to ensure that the whole body will work enough, the other leg has to speak louder also to take over. And he did that, which was, you know, with him teaching and choreographing was almost like a single operation. And in a way, if we look at the end result of everything, where the education he gave was an education on the technical level, on the behavior, on everything. It was like that was university. That was a university in this case, true university, because it was beyond, you know, the little step that you find, and you know, it was beyond it, because it gave you better technique in class, and class gave you better stage. He played with those, you know, but he was not looking for an invention. He told me once, he said, you know, if you do choreography, don't look for 3 original things. He said, if you can get 1 or 2, if they happen, let them happen. They should happen. You cannot make it happen. They should happen if you do well with a piece. You know, it was like, you know, he wasn't forcing those issues. It was just like that.
Well, I'd say, you know, for instance, the very beginning when you start the pull,
Yes.
and you go da ya, and he wanted her to pull back da ya, and then go, and
Yes.
so it's, I'm not sure I'm going to go, and then go.
Yeah, that's
okay,
right.
he must have shown us that 5 or 6 times,
Yes,
and
yes.
at different times, and so that is, so I think that's important to, because that's what he wanted. He really did want that, and he did it
Absolutely.
himself, and
Absolutely.
so. It's not like we made that up. We probably wouldn't. We just would have done the bourrée right from that step.
That's right. We wouldn't have
But
gone
it
into
was
that.
he insisted. So there are certain things that we know that he absolutely wanted, and he constantly. And then when she comes under, I remember that cutting under. Since he that's what he told us, and he instructed us. And I thought, oh, we have to keep that, because
Absolutely.
he wanted that, how he coached us. So that's precious sometimes.
He was never tired of the play between men and women also, in that sense. And with the situation being musical and technical, he recreated the human situation also, you know, but in the most legal balletic terms, and, you know, totally in balletic terms without diverging. But it was like, she's not sure she wants to go, he makes her come here, she does the turn, they are very happy. You know, it's like all this little thing going, you know, with the same thing, boy, girl, you know.
Right.
Well, it was very funny when you said to Jenny, she gave her hand, I think, to
Yes,
him so
yes.
quickly.
Not
Oh,
so
relationships
quickly.
today.
Yeah, our relationship is so fast.
Yes.
It's finished. Yes. No relationship. Yeah, express.
Oh, he'd spend a lot of time.
It's a Chinese
not
restaurant
just in
Dragon
this
Express.
ballet, but taking hands
Yes.
And looking at each other also.
And also, I remember he was saying, you know, it's really boy and girl, not prince and princess. Also, you know, because like in Sleeping Beauty, you know, the formal, you know, this, and she goes, yes, my prince, you know, more formal. And here it's like boy and girl, so it's more casual. But still, it's the same story, you know.
And you said you were the boy next door in this ballet because you hadn't worked a lot together, or was that what he wanted?
I meant just that it should look like we're in the garden. That's what I meant. Just a sweet little,
Playful.
innocent,
Beautiful
playful.
day. And
you know, it had. I don't think it's sexy at all or anything like that. It's just lovely.
It was interesting to see the fish because I always thought, you know, a while ago things were much more decorous, but that fish dive is quite wild. The angle of the body.
You have to go from 2 feet, so you really have to trust because the 2 feet are going to go up in the air.
It's almost
and the girl goes in the air
He
diving.
wanted it to be like a dart.
Yeah,
It's
literally.
like a dart, like you.
Dart.
And she goes this way, and
Yeah.
you should. Ideally, she should be coming down, and you just grab her at the end
That's right.
instead of taking her. and
And
doing
you
this.
don't want to
If-
make her do the
so
fish. You want
it
to
was-
get
you
her
wanted
down.
This, so when like Jennifer did at the end, well, she jumped so far,
Oh, yeah.
Scary. And you
and it could have been probably a little farther because of her. So he would have had her probably doing, because she was still not quite dropping. But you know,
It's a wonderful moment.
But-
Also, you are so very tired at that particular time that in some sort of way you lose your complex or your scruples or your fear because, you know, you're dead by then. It's so hard to cut
The
off.
end is near,
and
so
you
you might
just
as well.
you just dive. You know,
Yeah.
that's it. No problem.
But was that specific to this pas de deux? Or
Yes,
did he
I've
in
never
general?
seen that before. Except, of course, you know, the spring waters, that when they came, you know, the Stručkova, I think, wasn't it
yes. Oh, those-
Stručkova? And I forget who the man was. It was just so enchanting, that short but ravishing thing, the way they did those lifts and dives. And this was a little bit, there was a little bit of that, if you will, in it, but in a much more elegant way, of course, you know.
Yeah.
Much more elegant and sophisticated. But it was his little homage to all the Russian, you know, dancers also doing those things, and the Russian situation, Tchaikovsky, you know, always.
well, when she Jenny, just when she did that big jump, everyone went, oh, that's
I know.
the way it should be.
That's
He
right.
wanted that, and didn't that look free?
Oh, wonderful.
When it just
I
looks
guess.
like
It was
it's
so
just.
frightening. I couldn't think of anything
It was
else.
just free, though. She just
Yeah.
abandoned herself,
Yeah.
and that was great.
And that
that's-
is very nice to go to that degree, to go to that degree. This is also the kind of things that he made us do. He got us further than ourselves, you know, and Suzanne always said also, you know, it was like you had to trust him and do exactly what he said and not calculate the possible consequences, ordinary consequences. You just had to abandon, jettison everything and
Trust.
go, exactly.
He always wanted the man to lead, and the woman to be reluctant. Remember?
That's right,
So if
absolutely.
you ran with a woman, taking her in a little circle, she should always be taken, and the man is leading. And so the man sort of always that funny little ballroom thing of the push and the response. That's what he wanted. So, so I felt oftentimes I was leading.
Yeah.
Something or other, you know. It wasn't just out and catching. How many times did he tell us where you are,
Yes.
the geography on the stage, where you're at? You have to be here. More than he'd correct us on steps or how we did things, it was positioning, how you came in, and angles to make something
Absolutely.
look right.
Design.
Did he emphasize the idea of surprise more for Tchaikovsky, or because
No,
of the
that
nature
was just,
of it?
that's the end, it's the finale. So
Not
he
really,
wanted
but
that
it's
as a
all
finale.
that with all the retards and all the things, you know, it's the wonderful
Well, like that,
rubato of the whole.
what you said, she was doing the rond de jambe and then she was turning, and then when she goes rond de jambe, well, you don't know. And now she does that
And
turn.
now she's turning,
And then
that's
he's
right.
at her too.
You delay
And then that little
something and then it's,
surprise.
you know, then it has a quality, a quicksilver quality, which is literally by then a feeling more than a technical achievement.
Yeah.
It's an expression of something, of you know, a delight, you know, like something, you know, like frisson. I don't know how you say frisson in American. Of course, Americans say frisson.
Yes,
So I guess,
you're all right.
yes, chill, but not a chill.
No,
Not,
it's not the same
not that
thing,
kind of a chill,
no.
a little thrill.
Does it surprise you, or do you think it would have surprised Mr. Balanchine that this dance, this pas de deux, has become a sort of showpiece, like a sort of knock 'em dead, you know, divert? Was that what he intended, or?
He did it like everything he does. You know, you put out that child and you don't know what's going to happen to, you know. I think what I think is so wonderful, because it fulfills everything. It is so satisfying because it starts with the tenderness and all that wonderful, you know, play of music and light, like, you know, shadows and light. And then it goes into those perky solo and that incredible, extravagantly free and wild ending with all the control of the technique and yet wild in feeling. The graduation is, the crescendo is amazing. And that's why the whole world wants to dance this piece. It's one of the most complete little pieces you could think of. It's perfect. It might be an ostrich egg, it's bigger than a hen egg, but it's complete, it's perfect. It's a wonderful little ballet for two. It's a wonderful little story for two. It's a novelette.